welcome to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is Colin Close, and next to me is the doctor himself.
Hello.
And as always, we're joined by our producer, Richard.
Ahoy, hoy.
And our many, many fans. Each week we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC comics and movies while fielding questions from listeners like you.
While on the 6th day of DocMas, the doctor gave to me 6 dead Collins became 5 Morrison screams, 4 edit points, 3 for name Bruckers, 2 bad impressions, and some comic books from DC.
And in news, Priest brings the people versus the Justice League.
Oh, that's like a TV show.
Yeah, that's right. It's, OJ's the people versus OJ's.
Exactly.
The Pope versus the Justice
So
League.
Priest is the new writer. The Priest is the new writer on Justice League. And in this first arc, where the premise is basically that Batman makes like a critical mistake in the middle of a mission, and it has some serious consequences. So it's about the Justice League versus like their sort of public image and whether or not they cause more harm than good and things like that. So that's sort of like the first exploration of that with this new writer on the title. So the previous Justice League writing has been okay, but it's not been the best run of that series. So I think people are kind of looking to Priest to sort of like reinvigorate it and put something new into that series and make it sort of worthy of being like the big flagship title that it's meant to be. That's all I got.
So we're going to jump into Twitter.
No, how about we jump into Twitter.
How about I pour the drinks and do
You did this to me. You did this to me.
How are those levels?
Going down a little bit.
We're going to jump into bed at Twitter. Kyle Clark again. Why is the first issue of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing run the best single issue of a comic ever written? Mic drop.
That's a heavy statement.
The answer is it's not.
Oh, Kyle, you suck.
I
love you. I'm sorry.
It's great. Alan Moore's Swamp Thing run in general is pretty like amazing. It's I think it's widely considered to be like maybe critically like one of the best pieces of sort of comic book writing over like an extended period of time. That it's like a very, very well received, well respected run. I don't think it's the best single issue. I don't even think it's the best single issue of Swamp Thing.
Really?
No, the best single issue of Swamp Thing is the first appearance of Swamp Thing.
Really? That good? The first one?
Yeah. It's Len Wines from House of Secrets number, I'm going to get the number wrong, but number 92. It's the first appearance of Swamp Thing. It's not Alec Holland as Swamp Thing. It's Alex Olsen. It's set in like the Victorian era, and he becomes
Jimmy Olsen's great-great-grandfather.
Any relation?
Not officially. But basically that version of the story, I think I've said this to Colin before too, because I think Colin would like it. It's got that real sort of like Mary Shelley kind of vibe to it. The way it's written, the way it's drawn. It's a real like modern, that sort of like gothic horror sort of style.
I'm into that.
And it's incredible.
You would be.
That to me is the best single issue of Swamp Thing ever. Alan Moore's Swamp Thing is up there. Alan Moore is the one that introduced the whole idea that like Swamp Thing wasn't actually Alec Holland transformed into Swamp Thing. It was that Alec Holland died, and as the swamp coalesced around his corpse, his consciousness was like kind of imparted to it. So it basically was just like swamp that thought it used to be a man, which is like really like sad. And
So why isn't he called Swamp Man then? Is
Swamp,
there a Swamp Man?
no.
So who cares? Why not just go Swamp Man?
Swamp Thing, I think, it comes from that like horror background.
Yeah,
though,
that's
right?
dumb. Just call him Swamp Man. Everyone else is man
All right,
or
well,
girl. Who gives a shit? Just call him Swamp Man.
DC execs, it's dumb.
Yeah, we don't like it because shut up.
Thanks, Richard.
Again, like
Got my back.
just incredible contributions to further discussion. This is really great podcast material.
The eloquent talking that we really bring you on for.
And it's only gotten better 6 drinks in.
10 if you're Richard.
It's true.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just, that's one of those observations that I have. I was going to say one of those things, but
I think that's.
not.
I do think it's deliberate, though, right? Like if the whole idea, even before Alan Moore,
so like
got his hands on it,
dehumanizing him essentially.
Exactly.
Like he's dead, so he's not a man.
You're separating him from humanity because he maybe used to be a man, or maybe just thinks he used to be a man. But either way, he's now like
merman.
He's the avatar of the green. He represents plant life now.
Yeah.
Like he's actually like even further removed. So I think calling him Swamp Thing helps to like detach him from his humanity.
Swamp
a bit.
plant.
Hey, you leave the ficus out of this.
Yes, Swamp
You
Plant.
can go ficus yourself.
Much better name.
No, I'm sticking with Swamp Man. I like Swamp Man. I think that sounds badass.
Swamp Man.
So Phoenix person asks, is there any other Vertigo properties you'd like to see get folded into the DC proper continuity?
Ooh.
Right, so Vertigo is
Aside from all the paperwork that Super Todd folds.
Oh, you want to talk about Super Todd?
no one wants to talk about Super Todd. We're often forced to.
No, he's just often in the background doing all the work.
Oh, by the way, there's some things that are unfolded if you wanted to answer those.
I'll be right back.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
So the Vertigo properties that he's referring to, things like the Hellblazer, which is that's John Constantine, or things like Swamp Thing, or even like Animal Man. Vertigo was like an imprint of DC where the stories were more like mature. They could tell like it's back when comic books were still like maybe more geared to kids. The Vertigo imprint could tell more serious stories, go more in depth. They were maybe a bit more like
It was
artistic.
like the cool punk brother of Vertigo.
Yeah, they
of DC.
a little more like like artistic or things like that. So a bunch of those things have since
Was it Todd McFarlane, wasn't it?
Sorry?
Was that Todd McFarlane?
No, Todd McFarlane, you're thinking of Image.
Yeah, sorry.
Which is a totally different company, but that's all creator.
Who was Vertigo that walked away from DC?
Probably a few.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so the Vertigo imprint sort of has slowly, they've folded things into the main continuity. John Constantine's a big example. Swamp Thing's a big example. What else would I want from that? I don't know, actually. I think American Vampire is Vertigo. I don't know that I'd necessarily want that in DC, but vampires and like those sort of classic monsters are for some reason like a weird blind spot in DC Comics, with the exception of Frankenstein, who we talked about in our previous episode with Alex. There's actually not very many characters who are like a mummy or a werewolf or a vampire or things like that. So it might be kind of interesting if something like that got folded in to bring that sort of aspect to the DC universe. But I don't know. It's kind of tough because you're already dealing with like so many different types of powers and so many different corners, and there's magic and there's science and there's aliens and there's like other dimensions.
Magic, science, and aliens, and other dimensions too.
Take a drink. We made a song.
That's right. Specifically, Colin made a song.
Yeah,
You're
exactly. But yeah, maybe American Vampire. Do you have any like Vertigo titles that you'd?
Yeah, the one by U2. I really like that one.
Yeah. I'm so sad that I knew that I was so ready for it.
You know what I'm bummed about is the fact that they didn't give me their new album for free like the last time.
Today's 14, which is 14. He says 1, 2, 3, 14 in the song. I don't know why.
Good one.
Do you have any that you would want to fold in?
I don't know. That's what I've been thinking. I think Preacher would be.
Preacher in the DCU.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think he seems to have a lot of like DC sensibilities to it. I think that makes a lot of sense. It fits in really well.
That would be an interesting series to bring in characters that have like an angelic background, like Zoriel or like Phantom Stranger or the Spectre.
Exactly.
Like
I think there's so much of that sort of like Catholicism, like Catholic sort of religion stuff in there. Anyways, I feel like it makes a lot of sense, and you could really expand upon that.
You could bring Neron in on the demon side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I honestly would like to see some of the like that Supernatural show mix in with some DC stuff at some point.
Yeah. I know you guys push so hard for Supernatural. Yeah.
Like, well, okay.
One of these days you're going to watch it.
I will, but it's just a little daunting because there's like 13 years worth of TV
to begin with. Great show.
Sure.
It's a fantastic show.
Yeah, buddy.
And it's one of those shows that you can pretty much watch it from any start point and you're in.
Sure. Yep, that's true as well.
Well, I started from the beginning.
That's
kind of
really
nice. Good. And it's really, like, I feel like there's so many aspects of DC that would just lock right in with
It's true. It takes it from all of the, like, comic book references and stuff like that.
Well, I know you guys have talked about, like, it's come up before in terms of, like, death and resurrection and stuff like that. And certainly in terms of, like, the heaven and hell kind of, like, relationship to things.
Even, like purgatory stuff, too. Like, it's all in there. Like, Speed Force. Like realistically, it all sits in pretty...
I mean, you have firsthand experience with
the Speed Force is pretty chill. It's like prison, but no one's trying to touch you on the butt.
All right, next question.
I've read a lot of books.
Dr. DC will be back after this quick break.
This episode of the Dr. DC podcast is brought to you thanks to our sponsor, Great Lakes Grooming Co. Honestly, I've been using this product actually for a really, really long time. I, as well, have a very large beard, same as the doctor. I think mine actually might be a little bit bigger. So my favorite products are, first of all, that beard oil. I've been using it for a really long time. I've actually not had to use cologne because of it. I actually stopped using cologne because it was just, that smell of that beard oil is amazing. I also have a very rough and dry beard usually, so this has been making it super smooth. And then I have to say that my second favorite product is that Noble Selves hair styling cream. It's a medium light holding, which is really nice. It's hard to find a good holding cream for your hair. I've used waxes and gels and sprays and all that stuff, and it never really, really works. This stuff makes my hair look amazing. It holds for multiple days on end for people like me who don't like to shower. It's honestly a great, great, great product. So I've been super happy with it so far. I think you guys will be too. Great Lakes Grooming is meant to be easy and ready to use, rain or shine. All their products are purposely designed and environmentally responsible, handmade in Canada, ready for adventure wherever one may find themselves. And lucky for you listeners, you get 10% off on the Great Lakes Grooming's regular price products by going to www.greatlakesgrooming.com and using the promo code DRDCpodcast. That's right. www.greatlakesgrooming.com, promo code Dr. DC Podcast. Now, back to the show. And we're back.
Man, Dave Rossi, at it again.
Hell yeah, buddy. Thanks for all the questions.
Heck yeah, just in case he's listening with his...
Hey, we've been talking about religious stuff.
Thing?
His 8-year-old thing? You mean a child?
A child?
A child?
You just call a child a thing?
Swamp thing.
A child
Are you trying to disconnect the child from its humanity?
It's called a child man.
It's not a thing yet. Oh, like, it's not real.
It could have a thing.
It's not real. You make a terrible parent.
You're 8 years old. You're not even a real thing yet.
I would be the worst at being a dad. Who cares? Dave Rossi asks, in a recent Wonder Woman run, we find out that since leaving Themyscira, every past adventure involving her return home has been a lie. Can you explain, 1, how this affects the continuity of other characters involved in those adventures, and 2, a little more about how this came to be.
Yeah, so
boom 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 boom.
The original
Law and Order, what was that?
Boom 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 boom.
Nice. It's like my favorite show when I was a kid.
That explains a lot about you. So the original idea is that when you leave, because Themyscira is an enchanted island.
I am the law.
I like order.
Just let me know when you're done. Because Themyscira is an enchanted island, the idea is that when you do leave, you aren't allowed to return. This came up in the movie. That like Diana's choice to leave is much more serious because it means she can't come home anymore.
Can you ever really go home though?
According to this particular arc, no.
And every other telling of going home.
But basically,
right.
Here I am.
Over the course of like a bunch of decades of Wonder Woman comics, she's gone back to Themyscira. It's happened lots of times. Through the New 52, the Greek gods played a huge part in that series. Happened a lot. But in the most recent sort of rebirth arc, it's sort of like a dual arc called The Truth and the Lies. But basically, she discovers that every time she thinks she's gone back to Themyscira, she hasn't. It's been like an elaborate magical deception. So what does that mean for other characters who were involved in those adventures? It means, in the very broad strokes, they were also magically deceived. If you pry really deep into it, I'm sure this causes continuity issues because
delicious too.
Almost everything causes a continuity issue, basically. But I think in general, the quote unquote like way to explain it is that it's magic, everything's fine. The second thing is like, how did this come about? I think part of what Rebirth has been doing in general is been trying to take things that were maybe more classic ideas from the comic books, things that maybe had been a little bit abandoned in the modern age, and to try and reintegrate them back into the continuity. And so in the case of Wonder Woman, part of what Greg Rucka has been doing has been taking that idea about her being the only Amazon, like the one that left, and trying to reintroduce that and get that more firmly established again. And the way to do that is to say all those times she was able to go home or able to interact with other Amazons, those didn't really happen. She actually is alone. She did set out on her own into man's world. So I think that's...
It's a man's world.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what that means. In terms of like the continuity, I'm sure it causes issues. But in general, the write-off will be that it was like it was magical deception, and that can do a lot of things that like science can't even write off in comic books. Magic can pretty much get away with whatever the hell it wants.
Speed Force.
Exactly. It's a lot of that, yeah.
Yeah, trust me, it got away with me for a while there too.
It's because Richard put you in there.
Yeah, that was really surprising. I didn't think he was that smart. Turns out I was wrong.
Well, he's not anymore because you fed him like triple shots of rum, but...
Me no.
Sometimes dead is better.
Agreed.
Fucking Jesus, seriously.
So, Dave, I hope that answers your question there. Yeah, I mean, I think very generally what you can say is when things happen that are like retconny, where they're trying to like readjust where a story has gone. At a certain point, you have to have a bit of a level of suspension of disbelief. If you try to go and reconcile every single specific instance of a thing happening that's in contradiction to where the story is going, you're going to find the issues. You're going to find the discrepancies. It's impossible with like a character that's been around for 75 years to make an airtight new story for them, or a new background for them, rather. It's never going to happen. So what you have to do a little bit is have a bit of like a free flow approach to continuity, where you say like, maybe these things that I had read before happened, but in a slightly different way. And I don't know fully what that looks like yet, but I just have to adjust to the fact this is the new status quo. And those things that happened before probably still happened in some way, but you just kind of have to take it as it comes and as the story progresses.
Yeah, I bet you take it as it comes.
I'm impressed we're 6 episodes in and these jokes are only kind of just starting.
Yeah,
normally we don't need drinks.
Usually, yeah, I was going to say, usually does that sober.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, in general, hopefully that answers your question, Dave. Yeah.
Well, Richard.
Well, Colin.
How can people contact us?
Well, you know what? They can do it through our Facebook at
Dr. DC Podcast.
They can do it at our Instagram.
Dr. DC Podcast.
On our Twitter.
At Dr. DC.
On our website.
drdcpodcast.com or .ca.
And they can go to iTunes and rate, review, and subscribe. Making sure that you leave those What Colin Does, so we'll read them on each episode. Those help us out a lot. So if you want to write anything nice or anything mean, you know what? We'll basically read anything that you've got to say. So make sure that you do that. You can also check us out on Google Play, maybe Stitcher, all the places that you can get a podcast.
Well, and the other thing that you'll need to do is you'll need to have an email address.
Oh, what's that?
drdcpodcast@gmail.com. If you didn't catch that one, I was going to do it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad. So, because if you go to our email and you send us a question, generally the doctor will respond to you directly, whether it's going to be on the episode or just a response to your email. He'll make sure that he does that. He's pretty good about that.
Make sure you ask DC questions, though, and not, hey, does this look infected?
You know what?
Yeah, I'm not a real doctor.
If you want to do a Sum 41...
Not a doctor.
Or, you know what? Yeah, not a doctor.
Not a doctor.
Remulon. I did that a little bit too well.
That was good.
Yeah. I did the voice for that. No, I didn't.
It's a lot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine that you've been watching.
Oh, it's too much.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good show.
All right.
And Nick Offerman does that, actually, that Fremulon.
Fremulon. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's true.
Well, some kind of sign off.
Adios.
Hi, Brenda.
Aquaman, all the superheroes. They always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure.